Hi there, I'm Dani Henderson. Welcome back to my amazing channel. My guest today is the monthly astrologer that you love and I love and we love. It is the one and only George H. Lewis. Hello, George. How are you, mate?
I'm really well, thank you, Danny. It's great to be back in the United States after a little bit of time traveling around Europe and working over there.
I know, so
Yeah.
excited we're going to hear about your Bosnian pyramid trip, but I want to say to the viewers out there, hold on to the end because George has put together, so many of you are so into his style of astrology and other things that George does. And George has put together an amazing package and offer on this channel only. So we're going to tell you about it at the end for those of you that keep asking me, how can I connect to him? How can I work with him? This, that, and the other. So that's coming at the end. It's not going to be a very long drop today, guys. It's our monthly astrology drop, where we also have a little bit of a chinwag, a little bit of a chit chat, because we're friends and we love each other, and we're also catching up at the same time as we're hanging out with you lovely lot. So George, let's start with your trip to Croatia and the Bosnian
Yeah,
pyramids.
yeah, I mean, it was remarkable. I mean, you've got Dr. Sam Osamovic, and he's Bosnian. And of course, if you look him up on Wikipedia, what does it say? It says, he's a pseudo-archaeological
Oh, here we go.
man, and he's talks about the so-called Bosnian pyramids, and he claims these cluster of natural hills are pyramids. Well, I went there and I took a small group, and it was spectacular. There are these tens of miles long tunnels underneath the Bosnian pyramids, which carry an energy. I deal with energy. Your listeners work with energy frequency, and there is no doubting it. I mean, the pictures even from outside. I mean, the Sun Pyramid is about 25% larger than the main pyramid on the Giza Plateau in Egypt. I mean, there are pyramids all along the ley lines of our wonderful planet, and part of the age of Aquarius, which we are now entering into, is very much about their rediscovery, and not just their rediscovery, but their reactivation. And so going into this tunnel was kind of interesting. We did 2 or 3 days deep in the tunnels doing meditations, different light activation, and in particular working with sound frequency. I brought most of my tools from America and from Britain, where I keep them. And we did some really interesting frequency work. And there was one occasion, it was actually on the last day of the trip. And I had a lovely small group, the intimate group. I think we had 10, 12 people all together. And one of the ladies joining had her 12-year-old daughter with her, who was a very, very light-filled girl. Beautiful. We had her on the trip the whole week. And I noticed her, she was in the corner, right in the cave, and she was looking at something. And I noticed that she was having some form of conversation, some form of telepathic interaction. And at the end, I asked her, "What were you seeing there? I'm very curious." And she said, "I think I saw a Pleiadian." And I said, "This is really interesting. I sense this too, but it's so nice that you felt this." And they all left, and I did a 10-minute meditation on my own because I'd done all the sound for them. I needed 10 minutes or 15 minutes on my own to collect my thoughts and be in gratitude. And I got this incredible connection where this male figure came out of his frequency and met mine. And it wasn't full physicality, but it wasn't in color. It was in shades of gold and white, but soft. And he put his right hand on my right knee. And he said to me telepathically, "Remember the right knee. You're going to need to work with it." So okay, that was the message. And he sort of went off. And the following day, I got on an aeroplane to Norway to do my next retreat. And we arrived at this amazing space right up in central Norway, in the mountains, in the middle of nowhere. Beautiful new, not new, but new to me, temple and yoga and healing space. And the man who owned it was on crutches, and he had a very, very broken right knee. And I did some light work healing on him. And then the following day, he called me and said he was so much better and he was able to walk. And 2, 3, 4 days later, he was running again. And it was like,
Wow.
okay, this is very, very exciting because I was just, flowing energy from one frequency to the next. And it was very joyful.
That's really wonderful. What a beautiful experience. And how tall was this Pleiadian and what did he look like?
So it was really interesting because I remember sharing with you one of my early chats with you well over a year or 2 years ago about that experience I had upstate New York when it was a very much more of a physical experience where this Pleiadian stood by my bed and he was at least 8 or 9 feet tall and he kind of looked like a much better version of myself. He was very fair and blonde and powerful and so centered and so compassionate, you know, like the highest expression of me could ever be. This wasn't so much as physical as that. This was, he came in and out, and it was more like a real feeling. And I saw the spirit energy and the frequency. It was like wisps of phosphorus, which became a little bit solid in some parts, but it was still somewhat etheric. But the message came through very strongly telepathically. And so it was no talking like I'm talking with you now. It was a different form of communication. And what it's done since, it's expanded my understanding of reality. That's what I want to share with you. You know, I'm talking to you who runs the Galactic Conference, goodness sake, and you have people who are dealing in this day in, day out. This isn't really my wheelhouse. You know, I'm very much trying to explain my reality through astrology, through tarot, through different modalities to humans because I'm a human being right now. You know, I haven't been up on spaceships to my knowledge. I haven't, you know, been in the secret space program. So it's a very different perspective. But it was like a deeply comforting remembrance. And what it's allowed me to do since then, because we're going to now in a minute talk about the Uranus Mars conjunction, you see at the high frequency of that, what it's done is it's activated something in me to communicate more regularly with that dimension. Where before, even me, I'm talking about it, I wasn't fully embodying it. And I'm not saying I'm fully embodying it now, but I'm getting closer to it becoming part of my daily practice now, having that open communication with that realm.
It's so beautiful. I'm going to ask you a question. Do you feel that the first Pleiadian being that you saw standing by your bed, and by the way, just so people know that this is absolutely part of our normal, natural reality. And at the moment, the people that snigger and laugh, like I met some friends, I haven't seen them for 8 years the other day. And then one of them started giggling and said, "Are you going to tell me you talk to aliens?" And I said, "You have to have your own experience. This is how I learn. This is what, if it happens for me, then I believe it. I'm not someone that believes all the wishy-washy bollocks, the spiritual, I am so omnipresent, all the nonsense part. And everyone thinks they're connecting to everybody. And it's made an embarrassment of real, genuine spirituality. But that's also a socially engineered product of programming for generations that we must never say these things because we must be crazy. Now they're the crazy ones. They are missing out too. So do you feel that this Pleiadian that came by the bed physically all those years ago was your higher self, your future self? Okay.
I do, and I this is also down to as I learn more about reality and not just study more. It's more about as I get more remembrance, more feelings, a more understanding of just the band of frequency that we've all lived in has been so limited. You know, I mean, I can't always take it back to my childhood, but England, you know, is a Capricorn country and it's ruled by Saturn. And, you know, the sniggering is so omnipresent for me in that culture. I mean, I still get it today, you know, I got a dreadful email from someone yesterday by just sharing something astrological about the conjunction. And it was so judgmental because it was so brilliantly linear left brain of the material philosophy ruling high of separation from source. And, you know, for the first time, my reaction to it wasn't even anger or even grief, which is normally, it was just an acceptance that that person is still operating from that limited band of frequency. And thank goodness I'm having these experiences, which are helping me mature and come into a much better understanding of reality. So to answer your question, that initial experience with what I thought was a Pleiadian, and here's the thing is, Dani, I suspect I've had quite a few lifetimes in the Seven Sisters, the Pleiadians. I don't feel I'm exclusively from there. I'm not sure any of us are exclusively from one area. I resonate with some of the culture of the Pleiadians as far as their appreciation for music, frequency, healing, Christ consciousness. But really, at the end of the day, when I meditate on it, this is my higher self, my future self, coming back to guide me and to get me back on course.
That's so precious. That's so lovely. And again, it's great that you're coming from a very grounded perspective. You've been gently having these interactions with off-planet brothers and sisters, yourself, higher self aspect. I'll share a quick story. Again, I learned through physical experience. That's why I say it's important at this time. Anyone who's had these experiences and is having them, whether it's on or off planet physically, you've got to bring proof. And so if you've done it, had it yourself, and you haven't done it in a meditation, necessarily nothing wrong with that. But this is where I'm working specifically at the moment. So years ago, I was living in my house in Costa Rica, which I no longer have. And I always would lock the doors. I was alone in the jungle, just me at the top of the mountain by myself. And I would sleep with a claw hammer under my bed, under my pillow, you know, and, you know, have physically been attacked by humans before. So have an extra kind of anxiety around that. And I woke up and there was a woman, a solid woman standing at the end of my bed. So without even thinking, I leap up and I punch out and I punched her and I made physical contact and I punched her shoulder. The next second I reel back thinking, have I got time to grab the hammer and hit her with it? You know, because there's somebody in my room, it's in my bedroom. Who is it? And then she disappeared. And then I sat there thinking, oh my God, that was a physical woman. And then I realized, oh my God, she looks so much like me, but much younger, much prettier, much thinner. And then I realized she was smirking, right? And that is a me thing, right? Because it was
Totally you.
right. It was the night before I was having to sign my first contract for the conference hotel. And it's so expensive to do these things, like over $500,000. And I was so worried and my body was twisting in stress. I was like a pretzel. It was physically agony in my body. I was so scared. Tomorrow morning was the day I was going to have to make a decision. Do I do Jizik? Do I not do Jizik? Oh my God. And she was at the end of my bed going, come on, Dani, come on, Dani, come on. You know, so a me thing to do. And
Totally.
I realized that that was me physically from the future, which again
Yeah.
sounds so ludicrous.
No,
But of
no,
course,
not anymore.
not anymore. Of
It,
course, we came back.
not
A ton
anymore.
of us have come back for such a time as this to help with the liberation of this planet that's been enslaved by fetid turds who also cheated and went back down the timeline.
I mean, that's such a great example also of the negative imprint of Saturn, which is the time, which is the Lord of time, Lord of karma, and keeping us in this feedback loop of loosh. And in some ways, you see, oh, I don't know, in some ways, in all ways, you know, going to these pyramids, I am really clearly a bit of a pyramid chaser. I mean, genuinely, I drove down, I'm in North Carolina at my mentor's house, and I drove down from New York 4 or 5 days ago, and I promise you, on one of the drives, I saw a pyramid, and they're all over on the ley lines around the world, and that's part of the what I would call as a Pluto Aquarius age in which we're moving into the age of Aquarius. These are going to be absolutely brought front of center, and it's part of the discovery of alchemy. You see, it's not just the inner alchemy; it's understanding that there were actually major structures on our planet to help us ascend and optimize every aspect of the divine human blueprint. And that's been suppressed through negative Saturn. And someone like Laura Eisenhower, of course, speaks so eloquently on that. And many others, you know, from Alex Collier to Lena Denano, you know, so many. And here we are, we're opening up to a remembrance. And this is a cosmic collective amnesia that we're coming out of. And here we are having the opportunity to go to these Bosnian pyramids. There's one in Georgia I went to, you know, in the tri-state area of Georgia, Tennessee, and North Carolina, the sacred spot of the Cherokee. And they were guarding something proper, you know, and here I am on that land now. You know, it carries an energy. And of course, bringing it to the astrology, what have we got? Right now, we've got this Mars-Uranus conjunction. And of course, it kicked off with the failed assassination attempt of Donald Trump. Whether one thinks it's planned or not is not really the point. The point is that is a very clever physical manifestation of the symbols. It's tightly connected with the royal star, well, not the royal star, but the demonic star, Algol, in the constellation of Perseus. And that's why it's known as the head of Medusa. So you're having this demon fixed star, which is about decapitation, literally coincide with Mars and Uranus, you know, now for the rest of the week in Taurus. You know, that last time that happened was in the height of the Second World War. It also happened in 1997 when Algol went right over Princess Diana's chart, over her Venus, you know. And so the astrology just tells you so much about the potentiality, both positive and negative. So the positive side of what is your Mars Uranus is your light activation. And on that pure conjunction yesterday and the day before, I had some incredible other experiences in the evening with spirit energy coming in and seeing, I see a lot of phosphorus. I think we all do, especially in that liminal space before going to sleep and just after waking. That's why the great meditators, the great Tibetan practitioners, or the Peruvian mystics always love those sweet spots. So we're just learning how to access these modalities, and that's what it's about.
It's so exciting. It's such a fascinating time. And again, there's lots of people that, like your work, love you, follow what you do. And again, on their own journey. And it's so lovely, especially you being so grounded and calm and loving and gentle and open and so curious, and things are happening and you're taking your time to let them resonate, to let them process. And then, speaking publicly, like now, for example, that's so amazing. Did you notice an energy frequency in particular at the Bosnian pyramids?
Yeah, no, this is a very good question. So can I start with the water?
Of course.
Dr. Sam has, because he's had to buy some of the land, he's very protected because there are obviously forces that do not want this out there. He has been able to take some of the water, which is ancient water, but it's more than that. It's been rewired, it's been structured in a way that none of us, me included, understand what real structured water is. It's divine structured water. And I was drinking it literally for 2 days, and my entire body began to change. Now, of course, because of the laws, you can't take it out because you have to go through the EU, and the EU has protocols. We all know that. Everyone gets it. So I was only really able to drink it on site. That frequency is encoded in the Sun Pyramid. And of course, when you stand on the Sun Pyramid, you look over to the Lunar Pyramid, you look to the Dragon Pyramid, you've got all the mathematical formulas, it's all Fibonacci. And some of your listeners who have those strong Virgo qualities will be able to tell you exactly the beautiful detail and the pure divine divinity within the mathematics. And to me, I'm not a scholar like that, but there is no question about it. The mathematical formula is the divine formula, and it's laid out there like it's laid out on Giza, like it's laid out in Antarctica and on Mars and all the different places that we're rediscovering. And so the frequency there was, it was Christ consciousness. It was Christed, like the real essence. No doctrine, no indoctrination, no programming here, just pure grounded energy. And you feel the Gaia cosmic. It's a vibration. It's a frequency. I don't even want to label it at 528 or a particular frequency. It's perhaps lower than that in the sense of it's probably the actual frequency of the earth, which is brought out more. It's natural, coherent frequency of grounding. And when you come together with other human beings and you access it, it is truly, truly, truly healing. And so, yeah, this was my first time there. And so I long to go back, but I also long to discover new places like that on our planet, or rediscover with people some of these ancient sites, which are going to start popping up in a very big way.
Definitely. So you having been to other pyramid sites on the planet, can you differentiate between the frequencies there? Is there a similarity? Are they all
Not,
a very
not
different number?
Not yet. Not yet, because I don't have that experience yet. When I went to the ones down the road an hour from here, in the northern Georgia hills, there were no tunnels for me to access. I went with a water expert, and we had our dowsers, and we were, checking the water, and we were getting water to run over some of the natural moss. To create structured water, it needs to run over certain rocks or moss to activate it. And of course, the water has to be pure to begin with. So if it's coming from these sacred sites and then it runs over something, it builds up the piezoelectric charge, and that's when we imbibe it, and that's when we get activated. No, for me, my experience, really, the way I've had it is only limited to Bosnia so far. I mean, maybe in a year's time, with some more experiences, I'll be able to come back and share the differences, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
I'm a kid in the playground here. I'm a baby first time in the sweet shop.
I love it. I love it. And again, thank you for being so honest. You know, it's nothing worse than watching somebody who's clearly like just going along and making up a story and ad-libbing. And, you know, I love that you're so like, no, that hasn't happened yet, but it might. I'm open to it. It's an interesting time for everybody on the planet, as we know. Many are coming into their own power, their own recognition of patterns in the past. So we talk about the pyramids, but also there are different kinds of pyramids. And some people believe that Silbury Hill in Avebury in Wiltshire in England is an astonishingly massive prehistoric pyramid. And I spoke about it with Rachel Vaughan, the Australian satanic ritual abuse survivor. And she has a project called Ley Love Down, Ley, as in the ley lines, the electromagnetic lines that, of course, do compromise the grounding and the structure of our entire planet, our entire oceans. Now we all know that. There's no going back. The information's out there. So we were discussing Silbury Hill and also the fact that it is the busiest area on the entire planet thus far, unless China's hiding something, which you never know there, right? Because they're very secretive with their pyramids. It has been known and said that around Silbury Hill, the giant green huge mound that I have climbed and felt frequency at the very top and heard whatever, I've said it before, so I won't bore people. But it is the busiest place in the world for UFOs and crop circles, and real crop circles, meaning that how to tell the difference if it's man-made. Well, first of all, but humans are not as good. They're not as mathematically correct with the utter precision. There's been some very great copies, you know, field art, they call it, and things, and people have got very good at that. But the original ones, when we go back down the timeline of the tetrahedrons, the mathematically perfect Fibonacci sequence, the Julius set, the Mandelbrot set, these incredibly extensive mathematical situations, and like you said, the universal orchestra is math, it's numbers, it's rhythm. Again, there's no getting away from that. We're all becoming more and more aware. So with Silbury Hill, for me, I always had to have a photograph of it when I went there years ago, years and years ago, 15, 20 years ago. And I had a photograph in my glove box in my car, under my bed, and in my office. I had no idea why I had to have a picture of Silbury Hill around me in a frame in my house as well. I also didn't realize until the other day, I was going through a photo album because I keep them from very young, from a young 16-year-old girl to this moment. In my 5th decade, and I love to sit and open a physical photo album and look at my photographs. So I did that the other day, and I was looking at a photograph album I put together around 2016, 17, and I saw this. And this is a picture, a photograph of Val Thor, or Valiant Thor. Way back then, for some reason, when I first discovered him for myself, knowing that he was in the Pentagon. They couldn't control him. He was walking through walls. The security was so annoyed. Please, can you stop doing that? Of course he didn't. He's from Venus. It was proven. It is information for the world to look up themselves. Valiant Thor was a real man working with Dwight Eisenhower to bring technology to our planet that was repressed from this humanity and still is largely to this day. So I was amazed and delighted when I look at my life now in 2024 and the work I'm doing with the ETs and the great conference, Galactic Spiritual Informers, that I was guided. I had another road mark, a physical signature, which is this photograph that somehow I saw it online and I'm like, for some reason, I need that photo in my life. You know, and so for people again out there, recognize your own journey of discovery and the road marks and the road maps and the things that you're attached to and attracted to, because it's so lovely for us to go, oh yeah, I didn't realize that until now.
I mean, yeah, it's beautiful because I mean, we mentioned also like the sacred geometry. I mean, that's the thing is you see the spirals everywhere. It's Fibonacci, whatever it is, 1.618, you know, and of course, when you put like these perfect equilateral triangles together, like the ones I've just experienced, for example, I think it is 2,180 meters exactly from the pyramid of the sun to the pyramid of the moon, and then another 2,180 meters exactly from the pyramid of the moon to the pyramid of the dragon, which is a perfect equilateral triangle. And so Mother Nature doesn't make these perfect designs, but what she does when you put these triangles together, it forms a Fibonacci sacred spiral, and then we get into cymatics and cymatics, and then you start to have the music of the spheres come out, and that's when the frequency is activated. So everything is on that Fibonacci, and as above, so below, so within, so without. As the universe, so the soul is often the bit that's forgotten in that saying. And so we are mirrors of the cosmic, and we can also reflect back to the cosmic. When we can operate from our sacred space, we actually help the cosmos in its growth. It's not just one direction, it's both. And that's what I think is the new technology coming in, is we're all going to be reactivated. And that's when our biological age suddenly starts to jump, and the Chronos, Saturn chronology age is irrelevant.
Yeah. There's so many exciting things to look at. With the tree of life, the flower of life, the circles, the concentric circles that create that. We're so used to seeing that image and knowing, oh, that's something spiritual. But very few of us think to make it what it actually is, which is a 3, 4, 5D image, which means it's not flat. It is completely alive. It is organic. It is natural. It is spherical, as most things are. And then if you look at a rainbow, it is not an arch. It doesn't end on an arch. It goes all the way around and loops all the way back up again. It is a complete and utter circle. Some people say the rainbow is actually not just refracted light. It is, and not just a promise that there won't be a flood again, which is a biblical story. We know that. I was programmed with that myself. But the fact is that the rainbow is a stargate and opening a portal of such, but we want to be guided away from that. Well, that was the social engineering for years, but now we're like, no, a rainbow is a full, beautiful circular bow. And if you want to go further, you can look at the sun bow, the rainbow around the sun, the moon bow, even easier to see. Those that want to look up at the moon on certain nights, you will literally see gigantic, massive, magnetic rainbows, moon bows around the moon, going out and out and out. I wonder how many people have even seen those. If you squint your eyes when you're looking at a bright moon and you squint them out of focus, you put the visual, the critical thinking, the frontal cortex in the back seat of your brain, by defocusing, so the brain's like, well, don't need to focus here, I'm just going to chill. And then your eyes out of focus, look at the moon, and I guarantee you, look hard enough, you're going to see blue around the edges of the moon and other colors of the rainbow. It's so fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And it's funny I don't know whether I talked to you about this, is the solar eclipse of April we've just had. I experienced it on the Canadian border, full totality. And I knew before I was going to get some light codes to help with eyes. I want to show people how to restore eyesight. And there are certain light codes, but you have to do this consciously. It can't be passive. When you stare at the sun, and the best way to do it is about 20, 30, 40 seconds before totality, and then 20, 40 seconds after, you get these light codes, the photons come into your eyes, and it restores vision. And so one of the things I want to do next year is eclipse chase, take some people, because it is such an activator, the sun. And we've obviously been told stay away from eclipses, they're always dark. Well, like all these things, they can be used for good or bad. Let's take the Tesla technology, and I'm not talking stupid electric cars, I'm talking the real stuff that was suppressed. That technology was a gift. It was actually on the way to restoring our greatness vis-a-vis the pyramids and healing frequencies. But of course, it was used in a maleficent way. And so the good and evil is all down to the application, always.
Yeah, it's so brilliant. It's so great, and really does give, food for thought. And it's exciting for people to listen to some of the drops that we're giving here of our own experiences, and then again deeply think for themselves. Get together in circles, as in meetups, and sit around and discuss and explore and plan and do things, and meet up with you on one of your expeditions. Let's share what you want to offer the beautiful viewers.
Well, I mean, what's really lovely is I've got this wonderful co-creator partner, Brian, and he's helped me build out the George H. Lewis Academy.com. And we're doing a second course. I'm teaching the alchemy of astrology. And some people are worried that you need to be advanced. Well, not really. I mean, you have to have some knowledge of the astrology, But really, it's much more than that. Astrology is just a language. Really, it's alchemy. How do we activate our own alchemy inside us, understanding the potentiality for using the energies outside through nature, through trees, through sunlight, through water, and then understanding it astrologically. So I'll be teaching quite a lot about that. And I've got Dr. Christiane Nrothrup coming on to share with medical astrology. So I'm going to be pulling more and more interesting people in as well. It's not just going to be me teaching, but I will obviously be sharing all the stuff that I'm able to share and hopefully is useful. But it's going to be this merging of alchemy and astrology, because really astrology, when it's being used properly, is understanding ourselves better so we can alchemize, having a better sense of reality. Some people will say, well, astrology is demonic. Well, yes, it's used for good or for bad. Anything, cutting the knife. I could either break the bread, cut the bread to feed the family, or I can murder the family. We've got to get into the application as opposed to being propagandized to think that something is bad, when actually the baddies have always used it pretending to be good. I mean, you only have to look at the great centers of power historically with the Vatican and the City of London to understand that totally. And so for me, it's about us getting light people, humans, being able to access this knowledge. Esoteric or occult just means hidden. And yes, we have to go into the cave individually. Literally, we have to go into the cave and do our own inner work and clean up the pineal gland, get the the fluoride out of the way and the glyphosate out of the way and get the water clean. It's intense and it's going to take time. But once we clean our vessel, we are going to be much more activated. And that's part of what the alchemy and astrology course is about, is getting better aligned for the new earth.
That's so beautiful. And you really are doing an enormously discounted, and people know on my channel, I don't flog stuff. Well, I mean my book, but there's a good reason why. But for other people and stuff, but you really have put so much thought and effort into this, and you've got a massive discount for people that watch this channel. Do you want to break that down for us?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted people to be able to have, access to it more affordably. I mean, it's going to be 7 courses. They're going to be recorded for your group. We can do it at 444 instead of 777. And, you're going to be part of a WhatsApp group. I mean, for me, a lot of it's the community that we're building too. I mean, already with my retreats that I've done 5 this year already. I mean, people become fast friends because there's an alignment of soul contracts. There's an alignment of frequency. And, when we all come together, we're much stronger together. We do our own individual thing. I mean, that's the sovereignty. It's all about freedom at the end of the day. You do you and I do me, and then we come together. And that's when we get the royal star explosion positively, if you like, the positive aspect of Mars and Uranus, because suddenly your ideas feed mine. I love listening to people who are different from me, who have a different perspective. If someone ever might say I'm wise, it's only because I have people who look at the world differently from me. I get very bored of people around me who think like me. I don't learn anything.
Yeah. Now, talking of learning something, the great global health ambassador, the legend, Dr. Christiane Nrothrup. Share a little bit about what she's going to be bringing alongside you. I know you're great friends. We all met at the same time, didn't we, years ago down in Mexico,
Yeah.
and we just fell in love with each other, the three of us, and she's so special. So how will she be, adding her part in terms of the medical
I mean,
astrology?
it's just because she has such amazing knowledge of the biological system and obviously the feminine system, but just understanding really the sacredness of human beings, coming together. I mean, that's the alchemy, is understanding the sacred sexuality. And, someone like her, she's such a gift of her deep wisdom. And of course, she's also a very, 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 very good astrologer. And I know she doesn't really lead with this. And it's a bit like Newton. It's a bit like Pythagoras. It's a bit like Carl Jung. They were all very, very gifted astrologers and tarot readers. And this is where we have to, I mean, I think with your audience, it's not an issue. But, I mean, some of the stuff I talk about on some platforms, I get some pretty nasty comments. And I know Dr. Christiane, who has a much bigger, audience, it's tricky. But what she does so well, she integrates, the galactic with the practical. And she'll integrate the medical with the astrological. So she's going to look at, medical astrology and apply it in a very practical sense to how you can find your alchemy. And of course, if you've got a strong Pisces chart, let's say, for example, it could be very feet related. If you've got a strong Aries chart, it could be very head related. And then, of course, everything in between. And so she's going to be talking a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's so special. And again, something quite new and unique that most people haven't contemplated before, the term medical astrology. It's something really to behold. And again, it's giving more information for everyone into the field and all coming along in this journey of learning and exploring. It's
Yeah.
just so crucial right now, isn't it?
I mean, I love, in that sense, having her as a mentor because, I've been doing medical astrology for at least 4 or 5 years now. I don't necessarily lead with it because it can be a bit, overwhelming to people. But for example, say you have Venus, let's say, in the sixth house. The sixth house is the house of illness, which means wellness when benefic, like Venus is there, or Jupiter. But say you had Mars in the sixth house, and it was making some tricky aspects. There would be some underlying medical issues that you will have to override. And of course, with astrology, it's all about how you apply the frequency to the archetype. So someone who has a challenge, and I can think of many people who've had deeply challenging medical experiences in their early life, which forced them out of, say, a boring career in accountancy, suddenly into becoming a global expert on how to cure a very strange disease, which now is growing exponentially. Let's say, I don't know, something like Lyme disease, which obviously is an artificial creation. And so suddenly humans step into their power. So the medical astrology can be really useful, even if we have challenges. Sometimes people who have very good planets in medical astrology become lazy and they don't really activate themselves. They're a little bit, underdeveloped, not always, where people who have more challenges sometimes, if they can, they rise to the challenge and they become masters. And I think this is what's interesting. You see it in the astrology.
Yeah, that's so great. Thank you so much. Yeah, and we all love a bit of Dr. Christiane Northrup. We definitely do. And it's so funny how around the world, when I speak to people or see them or whatever, and I say, about her, like her name, how many people know her? Or you mention one of her books, you know, women's bodies. Oh my gosh, I'm ruining it. What was it called? Women's Bodies. One of the most famous books she's written. Women's Bodies, Women's Minds, Women's.
Yeah,
Oh, but everyone knows it and everybody knows it. And then she was on Oprah so many times when it was considered a good thing back in the day,
I
until
know.
Wikipedia ruined by the wicked pedophiles that run it. And they call her a pseudo doctor of conspiracy. Shame on them all. Anyway, let's not
I
get off
mean,
here.
But I mean, the bottom line is with Fakeopedia is if they say left, we now go right. It is the understanding of the pure inversion, meaning Dr. Sam Osamovich, with the pyramids, if he's being accused of pseudoscience today, full well he is pro-science. In other words, he's not being indoctrinated into a negative program. So, I think anyone who's still being celebrated on Fakeopedia, the alarm bells should go off.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, it's quite incredible, quite incredible. Well, George H. Lewis. GeorgeHLewisAcademy.com. We love you. We love sharing time with you and listening to you and having you come on every month. And I know we'll see you early August for the
Yeah,
August astrology update. But let's
absolutely.
let you just put out into the
Yeah.
field your final words for this month's broadcast.
Well, I just must obviously say, because we've done a little bit more beyond astrology today, this Mars Uranus conjunction, which was activated on the 14th, 15th of July, and still plays out for the rest of the week because of Algol, is a very intense time. And so for me, what I would say is try not to allow that negativity of intensity, that intensity to go into the negative. Pay attention, to your own aggression or what might be triggering you. Try and use this electric energy, which it is. It's powerful electric energy towards creativity, not destruction, towards centropy rather than entropy. So if there is any feeling of emotional, physical, intellectual violence, go the other way, where push it towards having that divine spark come in. And of course, when it's in Taurus, we're going to see weather events. Taurus rules nature, it rules the land. The weather isn't normal. England, because of the manipulation, is super cold at the moment and very damp and wet. And in the United States, it's the opposite. Geoengineering is at its height. We're going to see that at this time. But the point is, more and more people, more and more normies are waking up to that. I mean, I got 2 letters the other day from 2 clients of mine from 2017, 2018. And by early 2019, they'd had enough. I was going in a very disturbing direction for them. And they just couldn't do it. They're New Yorkers. And I got a beautiful letter from them the other day saying, "Thank you, George. You were right. It's all, what you said then is coming to fruition now." I felt so good, because it wasn't that I'm right. It was about the fact that they are opening up to a newer, better perspective, as I am doing too. I was totally sleepy poos before 2016. And on the royal family, it took me a little longer because of my programming. So, I don't know what to sum up today, but I think, yes, let's use the Mars-Uranus energy for creativity, for eccentricity of potentiality.
Very good. Very good. Tell us one more time your website for those that never go underneath the broadcast and see that all the details there. So it's all right. Let's tell people.
It's georgehlewisacademy.com.
And spell the Lewis for us.
It's Lewis.
IS at the end. Not
yes, yeah, it's English, it's British, Lewis. Otherwise, I mean, I wish it was Louis, but I'm ne peux français.
Louis. Georges Louis. Sounds very grand, very, very grand. All right, my darling George, thank you so much for dropping in. We'll see you soon, early August, for August updates. And to you guys out there, thank you so much for being here with us today. We love that you hang out. We love to see you in the live chat, and love to see you guys connecting and creating your own contacts in the live chats and the comment section. And I am Dani Henderson. I do send you love from my heart to yours, and I will see you soon.